Now that's being recorded, and we'll be taking notes as well so that everybody's comments get marked down. So part 1 for the environment. You can go to the next slide. So out of 84 total survey responses, most of the strengths were focused on trails, green space, the tree canopy available in the community, and access to various parks. We've got that state park and a couple county parks and neighborhood parks. The weaknesses that came up a lot in the survey responses were a need for more community gardens, more recycling opportunities, more public trash cans to decrease litter, need for more larger regional parks. One of the examples provided was Wheaton Regional Park as an example. And then invasive species management was brought up a couple times. For the outcomes, most of the survey takers chose improving tree canopy as one of the main priorities. And then some of the others that people wrote in were, again, adding community gardens, improving the trail connectivity, and increasing open space. So those are all things to kind of think about as we go through what was in the previous plan, and as you kind of start to jump into the conversation and share what you think the strengths and weaknesses are, and what you would do to improve the community. So again, as we review the previous plan in the next couple slides, think about how each of the statements currently reflect the community. If it doesn't reflect the community, how would you change it? If that statement's not applicable, what would you consider to remove from the action plan? What are things that you would add to the plan? We want to make it a really inclusive process so that the plan accurately reflects what is needed in the community, what's currently going on, and so on. So that brings us to our first kind of opportunity to, I lost my screen, to discuss some strengths about the environment of Catonsville. In the 2018 plan, you can see on the slide I wrote out the 2 strengths that were listed in the previous plan, which is pretty short, so it'd be great to add to that list. The previous ones were an established watershed management with 2 watershed action plans. And the second one was substantial tree cover. There was a higher percentage compared to the rest of the county. So as you can tell, it's a pretty short list. So you can, unmute yourself and share with us what you think some of the strengths are of the community for you. You can type in the chat, whatever's easiest for you. And I'm happy to give examples if that would be helpful. But yeah, I'm gonna see a little bit better. Emery, do you want to stop sharing your screen for a little bit so that we can all see each other? Perfect. So some of the things, I'll just kind of jump into it. Some of the things that were said in the survey about strengths were green space, the trolley trails, the walkable trails, the tree canopy, access to parks. There's a farmer's market. So if anybody has anything else to add, that would be really great, and we can kind of write those down as we get them. You can just unmute yourself as needed. April, go ahead.
That was a mistake, my bad.
Okay. Maureen, do you want to share anything about trails that you've seen and for Rails to Trails?
Well, I think the survey is very correct, or is accurate when it talks about connecting the trails. We seem to we put in a trail. We're certainly not finished, but having it connect is what makes a trail successful. So putting some focus on that, I think, is really important.
Definitely agree. Anybody else have any thoughts that they'd want to share? Anything that they've noticed?
So I just have a a clarification of what environment means. Are we talking natural environment, or are we talking?
Yeah, it kind of encompasses everything. So it can mean watershed management, the natural environment of the state parks around, the ability, stream capacity, sewer capacity,
Okay.
trail access, kind of everything all encompassing. So, you know, you can be as broad as you want or specific. Paul, go ahead.
Oh,
I'll yield to whoever wants to go.
I'm just going to acknowledge the comment in the chat. Someone mentioned that there's multiple access points into the Patapsco from Catonsville's neighborhood.
Yeah, thank you. And somebody said Patapsco State Park. So that's definitely a popular one.
Okay,
Paul, go ahead. Yeah.
great, thanks. So, you know, I'd say that a big strength that we have in a lot of this, you know, area are the size of the lots. You know, it's zoned DR2. A lot of the area is zoned DR2, meaning, you know, 2 houses per acre. And a lot of, you know, progressive, environmentally minded, you know, planners, you know, are suggesting that instead of continuing suburban sprawl, that we begin to gently densify the suburbs to create more walkability, more bikeability, to support our main streets and things like that. So I think, you know, just that we have this like kind of untapped potential, development potential of incremental development, you know, totally different from what we're going to be seeing going on at Spring Grove, which is also part of this much more transformative development. But that's a big thing. And not only, you know, so, you know, I think that, you know, we have the potential and opportunity to have discussions about things like accessory dwelling units by right, you know, allowing streets to evolve to the next level of density, and to understand what that means, and to, and just to facilitate conversations like that. I think we have a great opportunity. The second thing with the size of the lots is that we have an opportunity to do a lot of stormwater management just on people's properties. In Baltimore, you know, I put in a large rain garden at my home. I live at 11 Forest Drive, and we take on a lot of rainwater. Oh my gosh, we take on a lot of rainwater. And, you know, that's something that the county currently is not looking at that. And it is a strength, again, that we have these large lots that provide the space for us to do that. And they're beautiful and they're lovely, and it's a great opportunity.
Yeah, that's a really interesting way of looking at it. I hadn't thought about it like that before. Thank you for sharing.
You're welcome.
Aaron, I just saw your comment in the chat and Gone responded to you. Yeah, we typically don't include county and state lands. The program tends to be focused on existing built environment areas. But Patapsco State Park is definitely a valuable resource that contributes to the entire Catonsville community. Any other thoughts? Go ahead.
I could, this is Aaron Shapiro with Patapsco Heritage Greenway. I could just add, I mean, if that is the case, I understand why that's an issue, but clearly the environmental resources of the park are essential to the community. So the fact that they're scoped as outside and somehow separate, I mean, there may, if there are rules against including it, then you can't do it. But it seems almost disingenuous to do so, given the resources that the state park provides and offers the community.
I'm not sure if there are specific rules to exclude it or include it, but yeah, the program kind of focuses on sustainability as a holistic process that includes various things, but just because it's outside the boundary doesn't mean it's necessarily not important to the community. But yes, I see your point. Any other thoughts?
Yep.
Go ahead.
I'll throw in one more. You know, again, we have lots of, smaller ailing commercial corridors where there's a lot of, community excitement about redeveloping these places. Development takes a lot of, beating on in Catonsville, partly because a lot of the development comes at the community instead of from the community. But when we look at places within the current district like Ingleside and Edmondson, I can assure you, because I've had many conversations with the neighbors that live right in that area, that they're very excited to see that neighborhood, those commercial properties be assembled and to be redeveloped, so that there's something that they feel that they can walk to and creates vibrancy in their neighborhood. And it's great that Westgate in that area, you know, that new proposed expansion of the area, because indeed that would be a great strength, because we're talking about this east-west transit line. It's up in the air what it's going to be, but I believe North Bend Road is part of that system. And so to not do something there with redevelopment, and again, I've talked to all the property owners and so many of the local residents there, and so many people are excited about that. So, I think an internal strength is the excitement for creating, walkable amenities for people, for sure.
Mm-hmm. Amanda, did you want to share something, or are you accidentally unmuted?
I just joined and it was not muted. So I'm muting myself now. Sorry. I had to call in and I can see you, but I can't do both on my computer.
All good. Well, I think I will move on to the next slide. Oh, perfect. You can go. Yep. So the next kind of set of questions is dealing with weaknesses of the community. In the previous plan, it was listed that there were TMDLs, or total maximum daily loads, in the watersheds, which has to do with the level of bacteria in the watershed. The second one was that there was a lower percentage of acreage and area drains that drained to stormwater facilities with water quality benefits. And the last one was a higher percentage of the area covered by impervious surfaces. So let me quickly see what we said. So in our survey results, a lot of the things that came up about the weaknesses of the environment were missing trail connections, not enough readily available recycling in public spaces and businesses, a need for more community gardens, more street trees and more planters on Main Street, better storm drainage, invasive species, public parks and playgrounds needing more maintenance, more green space. So that was kind of the focus of many of the survey results for weaknesses in the community. Is there anything else that somebody would like to share about what they think needs improvement, or a specific area that's kind of lacking in these topic areas? Emery, you can close the screen.
I think there needs to be something done to keep a lot of the runoff from hitting the streams. I've been on many stream cleanups around the Route 40 corridor, for example, and the amount of the amount of things that just wash into the stream system is just incredible. There's actually a dry pond that is behind Westtown Elementary that is retaining a ton of water. It's technically supposed to be dry most of the time, except during major rain events. It's supposed to be just kind of like a marsh. It's turned into a lake because there's so much plastic and stuff in there that's keeping the water from being able to drain properly. And a lot of that, when doing stream cleanups, a lot of that's just coming down from the shopping corridor on Route 40. All the shopping centers, they wash directly into it. The highway washes into it, and there's nothing there to stop it. There's no fence. There's nothing. There's no type of break. There's no netting on any of the storm drains, etc.
Thank you for sharing. Suzanne, I see your hands raised. You can go ahead and unmute.
Hi, yeah. Thank you, Matthew, for your comments. I'm going to echo what you're talking about. There is quite a bit of water also coming off of all of the parking lots in downtown Catonsville, specifically around State Fair. I was told by another individual who said that basically there is no stormwater management program for downtown Catonsville. And instead, all of the businesses along that corridor deal with flooding regularly in their basements. And yet this does not seem to be a priority because the water continues from Route 40, as Matthew said, and it all just comes down into the watershed, and it comes down along Bull Branch, which is a sub watershed in our neighborhoods. I recently led a study that we're having the report turned in the coming weeks, and there are several options there to deal with the flooding, the incredible amount of dead trees that are along the Bull Branch. People talk about the forest canopy in Catonsville. There is no renewal. There are no saplings along that corridor because there's too much invasive pressure, too much deer pressure. It's just, there's nothing growing. So if people think we have a great tree canopy, we have right now a lot of invasives that are draping our canopies. So I think those are challenges, and I don't really see any leadership right now on the county's part in terms of this in this area.
Thank you for sharing. That's really good to know. I do remember seeing that Bull Branch study, and I believe I attended a couple meetings. It was interesting to see. Any other thoughts from anybody? Paul? I think you're muted.
Sorry.
Okay.
I mentioned the strength that we have, the land for stormwater management on private property, but the weakness is that there's no grants available to individual home or technical expertise for anybody. So I believe Baltimore City, Howard County, Anne Arundel County all offer grants to people to do rain gardens at their home, and the fact that we don't have that in Baltimore County, I think certainly should be considered a weakness.
Good to know. Angela, I see you wrote in the chat, would love to see composting options. That's a really good idea. Aaron, I see your comment in the chat. That's a really good point. Trees put in medians, yep. All really good comments. All right. Anybody else have a comment? Phyllis, your hand is raised.
Yeah, I just wanted to chime in with what Suzanne said, but also one of the results that apparently came out of that survey. And this is not just Catonsville, this is countywide. Another thing that the city has, for instance, that I don't see the county doing right now, and that's definitely needed is some invasive management program. there's a bunch. Through work, we get a lot of, there's definitely interest from citizens to help with that on, I think, both residential and public land. So I do believe there is there's interest from residents too in a kind of weed warriors program, and it's just so needed. It's that tree canopy that we have. I like that that's listed as a strength, but the reality is that I don't know how much longer we're going to have that tree canopy because it's all, not all, but definitely along the edges covered in invasives. And so I wouldn't be surprised if 5 years down the road, that canopy is going to be that percentage is going to be drastically lower than it is right now. So between the deer browsing and the invasives, I think a lot of Baltimore County residents would like to see at least, some kind of concerted effort to address that.
Yeah, thank you for sharing.
I think with the to add to her point about the invasives, I think there needs to be some sort of public relation program, some sort of, maybe something put out there, a public announcement about what residents can do to stop the invasive species from killing their trees, because I see trees all over the place in Catonsville covered in ivy, and what ends up happening 5 years down the road, it just chokes the tree to death, and it seems to be an ongoing pattern.
Can I ask it, Sophie, like Baltimore City Forestry Department has already drawn up plans for each city park. Is there something similar? Does the county have a similar program that you know of?
Sure, off the top of my head, but some of our representatives from the county, maybe Haley Amini, do you know if you're on?
Can you repeat your question? Are you talking about invasive removal in the county still, Phyllis?
Yeah, I mean, there's a bunch of things, but yeah, let's focus on that. I know the city is drawing up plans specifically for invasive removal, and possibly native planting. I'm not entirely sure how thorough how much their plans encompass, but I was just curious, is there a similar department within Baltimore County that's also systematically going through county parks and drawing up management plans for those?
I actually do not know the answer to that question. That would be Rec and Parks or Property Management. Do we have anybody from Rec and Parks or Property Management on the call?
I don't think our Rec and Parks rep is on the call, but I will make a note and reach out to her to find out, and then Phyllis, I can get back in touch with you.
Thank you, Sophie. That'd be great. And I'm sorry, that's not specifically Catonsville, but I do think it applies to Catonsville just as well.
Yep. Thanks for bringing it up. Amanda, do you want to go ahead? And then Monica.
Hi, can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Okay, great. I just wanted to echo that and enforce the idea that, Maryland and the states around us are having these really high tree goals, right? We want to plant millions of trees in the next few years, which is great and wonderful, and we should be doing that, but we also need to save the trees that already exist. So yeah, I'm just seconding and thirding the invasive removal as well as deer management. I really think we need to talk about managing the populations. I mean, when you get to a forested area, I spend a lot of time outside around Catonsville, and it just seems like the saplings don't even have a chance from between the deer and the invasives. So we're not getting the regeneration of forests that we would have in an environment where there were fewer deer. They just don't have any natural predators, and it's one thing to consider, and that's all. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for sharing. Monica, go ahead.
Just overall thinking, in terms of runoff and all the green issues, I feel like there's no respite, like on Frederick Road. In a lot of places, there's no, it doesn't have to be a tot lot, because I know they create all kinds of issues, but I think in terms of maybe it's the community garden, but I just think they're sort of green focal points at certain areas could be, in terms of even connecting the trails or whatever. I just think that that's something that we could maybe also think about. And solar I don't know what the electric situation is, but that's another thing that I don't know if that's a resource that we could look at in terms of utility and that kind of thing.
Yeah, thank you for sharing. Amanda, I see your comment in the chat. Pervious parking lots, yep. I am going to go ahead and move on to the next question, but we're kind of already talking that way. So, Emery, if you want to share your screen. So the next component of the action plan is to kind of think through different outcomes that we want to see and the strategies to achieve those outcomes. And then who can we work with to make those outcomes happen. As you can see here, the outcomes from 2018 were to improved water quality in non-tidal streams, and the other one was tree canopy improvement. So these are definitely things that we can add to for the strategies. I know we just talked about invasive species management as a strategy to improve the tree canopy and make that long lasting. So if anybody has any thoughts on other strategies that revolve either around these outcomes or different outcomes that you might want to see that we've talked about, feel free to, unmute and share any thoughts. I know there are a few things in the chat before about that. Baltimore County Watershed Stewardship Academy would be a good opportunity. Phyllis, go ahead.
Sorry, I'm going to, again, to speak to the tree canopy improvement. I do know, just comparing Baltimore County regulations with other counties, Baltimore County does have very, let's see, very much lower requirements to, like, when an area is afforested or reforested, the maintenance of that area, like the length of time that is monitored by Department of Environmental Protection, and then the requirements there for like survival rate and things like that. And again, like invasive management those are less stringent than other counties. So that would be something I, as a resident, would like to see become more stringent so that we can, I agree, like, let's save the forests we have. That's number one. But number two, then when we do plant or replant areas to give that their chance of surviving, a better chance of surviving.
I believe Justin raised a hand. You can go ahead.
Thank you. Hi, I'm Justin Haynes, resident, also work for an environmental consulting firm that does a lot of this work. So I just wondered, I think it was Paul earlier that mentioned county-based grants or rebate programs for residents to do a lot of this, whether it's tree planting or stormwater management. They're really great programs. They end up saving the county money in the long run because they can take credit for them on permit conditions, for MS4 permit conditions. And I know we helped set up Prince George's County. It's called Rain Check Rebate Program. So I'll run through the Chesapeake Bay Trust. So I don't know if that's a strategy that we could list under, probably do it under water quality or tree canopy, but it makes, I think, fiscal sense. So just seconding that one. Thank you.
Yeah, that's really good to know.
This is Haley Meany with Baltimore County EPS, and I know this doesn't exactly pertain to Catonsville right now, but I do want to let you know that we are looking into trying to do a program like that. There's a bit of, red tape that we're trying to figure out, but it's not lost on us that could be a good idea. Thanks.
Thanks, Haley. Jason, I see in the chat, echo maintaining what we have, Ivy Vines, public-private. Does anybody else have anything to share?
I have something. Perhaps, and maybe this is being done already and I just don't know about it, but we have some pretty large property owners, in the area, UMBC being one, CCBC, the Country Club, BCP, BCPS, the high school, the schools. And, it seems as though regarding the invasives, they're the frontline soldiers that, should be, like tending those properties. And it would certainly be nice to see that there be some sort of formal requirement of them to keep the invasives out of their canopies, and certainly work with the county and volunteer organizations. I know the Patapsco Heritage Greenway, I've seen them do, cleanup efforts, to work on areas like that. But that just always jumps out at me, in terms of why isn't the country club keeping this ivy out of their trees? I mean, it drives me crazy, figuratively.
C. Witherspoon, I see you raised your hand.
Hi, I'm Courtney Witherspoon. I'm with the Westside Men's Shelter. And I just wanted to say that in the event that there were some cleanup efforts that took place, I don't think we would mind perhaps working with some of our clients to perhaps participate in some of those cleanup efforts if in the event that they were close to the shelter in Catonsville.
Mm-hmm. Good to know.
Thanks.
Matthew, you raised your hand. Go ahead.
Yes, I just a little bit of a point here is that that there are lands that the county can work with to help improve the environment. For example, there's a lot of land that's in flood zones already that has been purchased in the past by the county, and really the county's just letting it just sit and not really doing much with it at this point. I think we could have a solution that would both provide an environmental sustainable model and an area for sustainability, but could also be an asset to the community, because as of now, a lot of these areas, yes, they are, that they're an environmentally sensitive area, but they're kind of off limits to the public, and really it doesn't really provide any anything to improve the quality of life for the residents nearby. And I think that that's something that needs to be considered, that for example, we could use some of this area where we have the streams. We could have retention ponds that actually operate as lakes, and have areas where people could go fishing and things like that, have a little bit of recreation involved. Also, that we don't have enough tot lots. We don't have enough playgrounds. I've just got back from a trip to Europe, and literally every 3 blocks there's a playground. This is, how do we want to look as an area? Do we want to be an area that attracts young families, or do we want to become an area where there's like, well, you can move there and then you have to drive 2 miles to get to get to a facility like a playground? And when there's land that's already sitting and owned by the county, I really think it needs to be utilized in a way that it does both environmental and quality of life purposes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank you for mentioning that. Justin, your hand's raised. Go ahead.
I'll be quick since this is my second one. I'm sure people in this call know what's going on with Spring Grove more than I do. But if there's some strategy involved in keeping that property green, that would be cool.
I'm not sure. Haley, I don't know if you are familiar, but that's something I can definitely find out.
Well, certainly, I mean, a weakness would be the lack of transparency of what has transpired with Spring Grove for years and years.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, for sure. And that is, at the headwaters of one of the branches of Herbert Run. So it is incredibly important that, when that happens, I mean, I was actually hoping this evening that people from UMBC who I know are part of just the group with the Sustainable Communities Initiative, is part of it. And certainly a lot of the financial tools in the toolbox, so to speak, are certainly going to be applied to Spring Grove, specifically regarding tax increment financing. So yeah, I mean, is anybody from UMBC on the call this evening?
I'm not sure if there's anybody on the from UMBC that's part of the project. But that's something I can look into and see if I can get some more information for you.
And I'll add in one other thing in terms of, you know, an objective is to just educate people. That's when I was running for county council, I knocked on, you know, we were working with a nonprofit to try to help people plant trees, you know, to get street trees planted. And so many people, the perception of, oh, it's going to buckle my sidewalks, it's going to be leaves that I have to rake, that they were more of, a lot of people perceive them as a problem. So certainly, perhaps, you know, an objective could be, you know, targeting a certain area and really, you know, going out door to door and helping to educate people about why this it will be good for you, your neighborhood, the community, and the environment.
Yeah, that's a really good idea. Thank you.
Yep.
And Paul, in the chat, Marianne Richmond from UMBC is going to pass on your comments to the Spring Grove team. Any other comments before we kind of transition to talking about transportation? All right. Emery, you can go to the next slide. Perfect. So again, there were 84 surveys answered. The strengths that were typically mentioned in the transportation sections were walkability of downtown Catonsville and on 144. There are several transit options available, close proximity to highways, the light rail, the airport, and there are bike lanes available on some of the roadways. Some of the weaknesses that were mentioned were the traffic, which I'm sure everybody can agree. Cars speeding, sidewalks are in poor conditions in some areas. There was a request for extended bus service to connect to Ellicott City and more bus service on the weekends, so Friday and Saturday nights. A lack of parking downtown, improved access to the mass transit options surrounding the community. And then for the outcomes, most of the survey takers chose to improve connectivity. And the other ideas were specifically to improve Rolling Road and Edmonton Avenue, improve sidewalk condition, and improve the downtown parking. So yeah, we can go to the next slide and start talking about some strengths. Some of the things that were in the 2018 action plan, as you can see on the slide, were an extensive bicycle access network, strong network of public bus lines. The UMBC shuttle is helpful for students, and easy access to highways that connect to major transit hubs like the airport and the light rail. So if anybody has anything to add to that, that would be great. Emery, you can stop sharing your screen. Yeah, perfect. So yeah, feel free to unmute yourself as needed.
So I'm going to flip something on its head. Someone said that traffic was a weakness. And, you know, in some respects, you know, I understand the person behind the wheel of the car feeling that way. But, you know, it reminds me of a couple weeks ago on a Friday, I was driving through downtown Catonsville. And oh my gosh, the traffic was horrible. The traffic was horrible. And it took me probably 15 minutes to go from Forest Drive to the Beltway. But you know what I get for that is vibrancy. What I get for that is vibrancy. Um, and so, you know, to me, the traffic along Frederick Road is not a weakness, quite the opposite. It's a strength that allows for placemaking and a place where it's more comfortable for a variety of users. Something that so many of our streets, you know, lack. So that downtown part of Frederick Road, for me, that's a strength.
Thank you for sharing.
Yeah.
Matthew, do you want to go next?
Yes, and you know, I did say in the chat here that there is, you know, Catonsville's built out a bicycle plan, but there has been almost nothing that has been done in the northeast quadrant of Catonsville, especially like around Academy Heights and in Ingleside. No real connectivity to the US 40 corridor. I also want to add here that I really think that we need to consider US 40 and, you know, being a gateway into Catonsville and into the area and a gateway into Baltimore. And we really need to be considering that when we're thinking about urban renewal. You know, there's been, you know, there's been a lot of blight that has gone on the US 40 corridor, a lot of businesses that honestly don't really add to the area and really make kind of make Catonsville look bad. And, you know, to be honest with you. And I think that we should be looking at that in this plan as well. You know, also to add to this, we do have a lot of we do have a lot of gridlock that goes on in our communities. For example, Ingleside Avenue has a lot of gridlock. Bloomsbury has a lot of gridlock, and we need to start thinking about solutions for dealing with that, whether it be utilizing one-way streets to be able to free up and keep the traffic moving, or we need to be looking at things like traffic circles, you know, ways to keep the traffic moving so we don't have the vehicles just sitting and idling. And really, when they're idling, they're just spewing exhaust fumes into the air without actually having any productive, you know, any productive use. So there's a few points there that I'd like to make.
Yeah, thank you for sharing. Amanda, you can go ahead, and then Emery, do you want to put up the map and share your screen for a little bit?
Thank you. I'll be quick. I agree with Matthew's sentiments as well. As far as the strength, I think I heard you mention this, but there was just the parking study that was done. And so I think what we know is that downtown Catonsville, that little corridor along Frederick Road and Edmondson, it has enough parking. People aren't used to walking, but it has enough parking. We don't want more impervious surface in that area. And in fact, I think less would be good if there's any way we could rework those parking lots. I know I already said that once, but I think a strength is we don't need more parking. So just wanted to reiterate that. Thank you.
For those of you who don't know, the Catonsville parking study was done, was collecting input over the summer, and they had come up with a series of recommendations to make parking a little bit easier. There are a lot of privately owned parking lots that have confusing signs. So there is enough parking, it's just not clear that it's available for the public. So there was a study to make sure, or to give recommendations on how to improve that. So I think that will be out in the end of the year for public review or public comment. Monica, you can go ahead and go next. And then Emery, can you go back in the PowerPoint to the map, the boundary map?
Yes, I wanted to say that I think, you know, as we're talking about parking and what I think in terms of walkability, I think one of the neat features, and that's why I wanted to see the map, because I was going to see the corridor, but I think there's a lot of hidden pathways and alleys that could really be used as accessible walkable places and bike paths. And if there was a, you know, the placemaking to sort of make that happen, because you literally can go from one, you know, from Edmondson to Rolling and 500 different ways, you know. So I think that there's a lot of potential. I'm sure there's more of that also possible in other areas, but I just, you know, recently working in the area, there's some really cool like alleys and stuff like that that I think could be really a benefit to the whole idea of even possible green spaces or hidden spaces or something like that.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Thanks for bringing that up. Any other comments? I know we were kind of talking about strengths and then we kind of started talking about everything, so that works out. Thinking about the increase in EVs on the road, are there plans to begin adding more EV chargers? I am not sure, but if there's somebody on the call, I think she may have signed off, but I will follow up with that and find out. I'm not sure if there's anybody from the state on the call that's able to answer that question, since 144 is a state road. But for county roads, I will definitely ask.
Hello, this is Kim Lizzie with State Highway Administration. Thank you. And what was the question again for 144? I know that 144 for like the city line to 695. I know that BG&E's working on putting a new line out there. I know they got the road torn up a little bit and they're working on, I guess, a nice patch for that. But we also have a roadway project out there from the same limits, the city line to the Beltway, that we have under design right now. If that's the location you were talking about.
Yeah, the question was about if there's plans to add EV chargers.
Oh, I'm sorry about that.
All good. That's all good information.
Off topic anyway, but not that I'm aware of. So.
Okay. And I know you guys are working on an east-west transit study, so that's good to note. Justin, thanks for that comment. That's good to know. Infrastructure bill funding for EV chargers. Emma, you can go ahead and flip through the PowerPoint to get to the weaknesses slide. I know we were kind of jumping around, but just to quickly share, here's what was listed as weaknesses previously. Limited funding for bike and ped improvements and narrow road right-of-way, restricting the ability to have fully implemented complete streets. Some of the other things that survey takers had mentioned were congestion, Edmondson Avenue in need of traffic safety, various pedestrian safety comments, improving rolling road, maintaining sidewalks, and improving access to transit. Is there a lack of parking downtown, which I know we already talked about a little bit with that parking study. But if anybody has anything else to add in this category, feel free to unmute or type in the chat. Yeah, and then after that, we'll get into outcomes. But if you have an outcome, you can share it now as well. Road noise on US 40. Okay. Paul, go ahead.
So, I remember talking with Charlie Murphy about like a meeting that he and Tom Quirk sat down with Department of Public Works about trying to do away with the street parking on Frederick Road. And that it was just like a hard stop. Like there was just no possibility of that. And so certainly that has to be a weakness, this like dogmatic, we can't even try it. We can't even do, there are examples across the country of pop-up traffic, just where we try something just for a weekend to see how it works. And certainly I'm not seeing any of that done in the area. I mean, perhaps I'm not looking hard enough, and I apologize if that's the case. But it just seems as though there's this very car-centric focus that we're having a hard time breaking out of. And even though we do have some of these narrow right-of-ways, and I'm assuming whoever mentioned that, like we could look at, say, Winners Lane or Frederick Road as being two prime examples of those. But, we have a lot of roadways too in Catonsville that were built in the 50s where it's quite the opposite, that the roads are quite wide, that facilitate the dangerous state, meaning that the wideness of the road allows the driver to perceive that, hey, I can drive fast on the street. And that's a big weakness. That's a big weakness. And again, organizations like Strong Towns and Congress of New Urbanism are lifting that up all the time, all the time, in terms of when we repave our streets, that there has to be a protocol to trigger what can we do. And maybe even before you do it, you don't just do it right away like we did on Edmondson Avenue. What we need to do is again to do these kind of pop-up traffic calming. So you do something that's not permanent, that's short term, so you can see if it works and how people respond to it.
Yeah, thank you for sharing. That's a good strategy. Courtly, I do see your hand is raised. I'm not sure if that was just left over from last time or if you had something to say. Oh, took it down. Traffic calming on busy residential streets like Ingleside Avenue. Yep. Digital speed signs. Those are good ideas. Any other thoughts before we kind of transition into talking a little bit more about the outcomes?
I'm sorry, I feel like I'm bogarting the attention.
All good.
I mean, one weakness that my wife works at UMBC, my children work at or go to school at UMBC. So I love UMBC. I mean, it's important to me, my family, my community. But I have to say that, weaknesses is that we have a transit, they have a transit system that's not available for the wider community. And certainly in terms of improving, mass transit in Catonsville, just the immediate area. And I saw something talking about a way to get people to Ellicott City and weekend service and things like that. I hope that the representative of UMBC will take that back because, man, what a just game changer that could be for our community in terms of allowing citizens to purchase a pass, maybe pay an annual fee for it, but to be able to use that resource in a little bit more holistic of a fashion.
That's definitely something that's been done in other colleges. I know University of Maryland, you can
Yep.
do a similar thing.
Yeah.
Matthew, you want to go ahead?
I just want to add to what Paul is saying. I want to expand on that. One of the issues we have in Baltimore County is that we're growing. Our population is bigger than the city. We have more economic activity than Baltimore City, but we really rely on Baltimore City's hub and spoke model when it comes to transit. For example, there is no bus that goes from town center to town center in this county. There's nothing that utilizes the Beltway, nothing that utilizes the highway system. If you need to get to a meeting and it's in Towson, from Catonsville, you're looking at 2 or 3 transfers to be able to do so. You're looking at hours, to do that. There's no convenient way. I can't hop on a bus and go to Woodlawn or go to Arbutus. And I really think that there needs to be something maybe from Frederick Road, for example, have a bus that gets on the Beltway there and goes to the next town center, that connects the county, because right now we're just so disjointed and we're relying on a city that is honestly dying. With like the economic activities come out to us and we're not acting in a way that is urban. And that's my take on it. It's great to have the local buses, but we don't have a way of getting from one town center to another, within the county.
Yeah, that's a good point. If anybody has any other thoughts, if not, we'll move on to show what the outcomes were. So in the 2018 plan, there was only one outcome listed, and that was to improve bicycle and pedestrian connectivity. So this is definitely something that we hope to expand on and maybe add another outcome. again, we already kind of talked about the Catonsville parking study. That's something that's definitely going to be a strategy. If that's one of the outcomes, you know, increasing the efficiency of parking, increasing the efficiency of Main Street. That's something we can talk about. Working with Catonsville Rails to Trails again. Maureen, I know you're on the call, so if you have any upcoming projects you want to share, that'd be fun to hear about. And then again, MDOT and MTA are working on that East-West Transit Corridor study project, as well as a North-South corridor. And I know that public meeting was, I think, a couple months ago, so I'm not sure. I don't know if anybody in the call has a better understanding of when that study will be released, but that should bring about some transit updates for some of the things we were just talking about. The North-South study survey is still open. Yeah, that's good to know. Emery, you can stop sharing the screen, I think. So if anybody has any other strategies that they want to mention, maybe Maureen, you can start off and kind of share what Catonsville Rails to Trails is up to lately.
Well, we just dedicated in August a section of trail. It's a boardwalk section that runs behind Catonsville Elementary School. And this is part of the 2.2 mile short line trail that extends from Charlestown Retirement Community to hopefully Frederick Road. Our trail now stops at Bloomingdale, and we would like to run the trail up the side of Bill's Music House and have it go all the way up to Frederick Road. However, we were notified last week that the property owners at this time this is not a priority for them, and they will be happy to discuss it with us at a later time. So one of our objectives would be to finish that part of the trail, 755 feet. And we can't get it done, but hopefully we will in the future. We also, with this trail that would come right up near the fire, or come across from the firehouse, we would then like to have people go down Eggy's Lane and through the back roads to get over to the Catonsville Arts Guild. So that's a plan we kind of have in the back of our head, that would be a pretty easy one to do because it could be an on-road trail. And I've talked to the people at the Catonsville Athletic or Christian Athletic Association over where St. Tim's Church is, and they're interested in perhaps doing a trail. So we would have a pretty easy time doing that one. The one trail that we're very interested in is a trail to UMBC. I've been trying for 23 years to figure out how to get the UMBC students up to Catonsville, and we just can't come up with a plan. So I really hope that in the future we can work with UMBC as they redevelop the campus to make sure there is a nice bike hike trail that will connect UMBC to the short line trail. Also, I have a couple of trails in the back of my head that Catonsville Rails to Trails doesn't even know about. But one is it would be really nice to have a way to get from the short line trail near Western School of Technology and have it go through there's a small watershed back here, and have the trail go through there and reach Wilkins Avenue. And then another one I would like to see would connect my condo to Guinness, the distillery. It would be a trail that would run along the side of the Beltway from Wilkins Avenue down to Leeds Avenue. And it's interesting because there is a county park back there, which we could probably get pretty easy access to. And Maiden Choice Elementary also runs along there. So there would be a really nice way to bring a trail from Wilkins Avenue down to Arbutus, and then go up to Southwestern Boulevard, and voila, you're at Guinness.
Yeah, that's a really great idea. Hopefully that comes to fruition. That's awesome. Matthew Race there, the trail fee above Edmonton Avenue be connected. That's a good thing to note. Maureen, I'm not sure if that's something that you work on. If not, I will be sure to make note of that. Courtly, I see your hand is raised. If you want to unmute and go ahead.
Thank you so much. I just wanted to say that, so we're with the Community Assistance Network, and so we have one location that provides supportive housing in Arbutus, and of course we have the Westside Men's Shelter that we oversee in Catonsville. And I heard about the survey, and I'm hearing so many of these issues that have been discussed that would be either to the benefit of our clients or they would have a strong position and opinion on. And I'm just wondering if the survey opportunity has closed or if perhaps at some point our clients could participate. I know specifically in Arbutus, our permanent supportive housing unit, those folk live there for quite some time. So they're like residents of Arbutus. So I just wanted to bring that up for some potential discussion and or some consideration in the future.
Yeah, sure. So our kickoff survey, the one that was going on for the past couple of weeks, closed today, but we will have additional surveys after each of these focus group meetings. So the one for environment and transportation will be out by the end of the week or early next week, and then open for 2 weeks and so on, for each of the focus group meetings. And I can be sure to send you those virtual links, or if you want paper copies, I'm happy to drop those off to you. So the surveys will be kind of focused on the Catonsville boundary themselves, but people in Arbutus, use Catonsville's resources, so they definitely have a valuable opinion, and I'd be happy for them to participate. And just to note, we do have a Arbutus Sustainable Community as well, but their renewal isn't for another couple of years, but I'll be sure to make note of that.
Thank you.
So Sophie, that Catonsville or Arbutus Sustainable Community, it's almost just a continuation, if I'm not mistaken, looking at the map of it as well. Is that correct?
Yes, the two communities do kind of back up to each other. Catonsville Sustainable Community has been designated for almost 10 years. And the Arbutus one actually just got designated last year. So they're a newer, or maybe 2 years ago in 2020. So they're a little bit of a newer community, but we connected them so that it's kind of a holistic approach. And their action plan is up for public view on DHCD's website. Maybe somebody can put that in the chat, or I can share it afterwards. Monica, go ahead.
So I just wanted to, I know, Sophie, you participated in our public arts focus groups, and they're also coming back, but I just think that to sort of along the lines of what Maureen was saying, I think that in terms of doing, and Paul was saying about trying things out temporarily, I think art could absolutely help with, temporary art could do. You could try the traffic calming and also the placemaking. And then also there was talk about, shutting down a road for a day and doing some kind of, for a couple hours even, so I think there's a lot of things or events that could lend themselves to sort of experimenting with some of the things we're talking about, or even, as far as the trails and stuff go too. So I just want to throw that in.
Mm-hmm. That's a really good point. Thank you. Any other thoughts?
I just wanted to mention that since we're talking about the arts, has anybody seen what Ellicott City is doing on the side of the theater? It's this massive art project that is a large wheel with water going over it, and the water is actually done by lights, but it's a huge public arts, I guess, sculpture, you could almost call it. And if you look at the whole wall has been bricked, and they did it by painting the wall. A woman named Tony painted each brick on the wall. So if you get a chance and you're in Ellicott City, look at the wall of the theater like as if you're going up to Target, And I would love to see artworks like something like that, in Catonsville that would actually attract people and get people to come to our community.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a really good point. I'll definitely be sure to remember to bring that up in a couple weeks. Great. Any other thoughts? We're actually on time to finish, not late, so that's good despite the 15-minute delay.
So Sophie, I'll say this, that, again, I think that we do need to start, working on, gently increasing the density around our main street. I live I live really close to Main Street, so I know that this would be a very contentious thing to talk about, and people are generally speaking very against development. But when you go to an MTA meeting about the red line, restarting the red line or bus rapid transit or any type of transit discussion, whenever I pose the question of how important is the place that transit connects, how important is that place to making it a density that's conducive to utilize the transit? And they're always like spot on, right? So, again, we need to start getting away from this, oh, traffic's so bad now and things like that. And I know before I learned about all of this stuff, that was kind of my mindset. I was one of those people. So it's really about kind of educating people about why this is good, and possibly even to get like zip, and to, can we have carless carless type of affordable housing development? I've met older people in Catonsville that it's like, they want to stay here, but they don't know where, and they have a big house and they can't afford to maintain the home, but they're like, they want to downsize, but they don't know where to go, where they're going to go. Where can I go? So it's that, again, the places like, Westgate, like Ingleside and Edmondson, certainly Frederick Road, Paradise, all Maiden Choice and Westland Boulevard comes to mind in the Arbutus Sustainable Community. But, these are places that we should be thinking about adding a little bit more density so that they become one, it will slow traffic, making it more conducive to bicyclists and pedestrians. And then, just make it more conducive for people to use mass transit. So,
yeah, thank you for sharing. Matthew, go ahead.
So to add to that, one thing that could really help is if we had some sort of allowance that was done to the county zoning rules when it comes to density. One of the challenges that we have is that there is a requirement in Baltimore County that you have to have at least 70 feet of street frontage to have an accessory dwelling unit in a single family residential property. And single family also includes townhouses, it includes duplexes, and really anything of that nature. And if we want to increase the density, maybe looking into creating an exemption when it comes to that, maybe allowing a second dwelling unit by right in the area to be able to do so, rather than saying let's build new apartment buildings, etc. If we would allow for more density in the existing buildings and dwellings, I think it would be helpful.
Definitely. All right. So if there are no other questions, I guess we'll kind of finish up. The next meetings will be November 3rd, which is a Thursday, to talk about housing and land use and local planning. And the last work group meeting will be November 10th, another Thursday, to talk about economy and quality of life. Again, there will be topic area surveys that go out starting next week on November 1st, and will each be open for 2 weeks. So the environment and transportation one will be open from November 1st to November 14th, and then the following weeks, it'll be the same pattern for the other meetings. The surveys will be online on the SC Hub, and there'll be physical copies at the Catonsville Senior Center and Library like last time. And I did type in the chat, if anybody would like to be added to my distribution list for updates on meetings, reminders, feel free to put your email in the chat, and I will add you to that list. If you have any questions, feel free to scan the QR code on the screen to see our website. If you have questions about Catonsville Sustainable Community specifically, email the email on the screen. It's suscomcatonsville@baltimorecountymd.gov. And thank you all so much for coming. I'm glad this worked out. And again, I apologize for the 15-minute delay in the beginning. That was a little chaotic, but that's great. I will see you all next week for housing and land use.
Thanks, Sophie.
Thanks.
Sophie, you can stop the recording.
Oh yeah, thanks.